Yeah, here we go. Teaching a Rockstar podcast. All right, episode 50. Man, I tell you, when I started this thing, in the back of my mind, I thought to myself, if we make it to 50, if I can knock out 50 of these things, I was thinking by that time, by number 50, I would have my, the message figure out and what my voice wanted to be in podcasting and kind of get lasered focused with the message and who I wanted to have on the show and who I want to have conversations with. And I don't know why I was thinking 50, but I think we're there. And now we're knocking these things out like 2 or 3 a week. It's been amazing. And for those thousands of teachers that have been subscribing and downloading and listening and sending messages, I can't thank you enough. It's been amazing. And a lot of people have been sending in names. You need to talk to this guy. You need to talk to her. She's awesome. Or if you want to be on the show, let me know and we will set it up and we'll have a conversation for people to listen to. And all right, episode 50. Here we go. Travis Niemeyer is on the show today. And this guy, man, this is one of my favorites, and I know I say that every time, but this really, it's so good, and, this is my favorite, and if it's not, this is in my Mount Rushmore of favorite episodes. In fact, as we were talking, I was thinking what could be a great clip to share to get people interested in this one, and it's like everything that came out of this guy's mouth was something to share, was some magical thing that was great for kids to hear, teachers to hear, parents to hear. For me, it was just so refreshing, just finding, again, like there's so many of these heroes out there doing the work, making a difference in the lives of kids and his teachers. And of course, he never takes the credit. He always gives it to his teachers, which he's just awesome. Travis Niemeyer, he's up at Beartooth Elementary. You talk about a cool name for a school, man. I wish I went to an elementary school called Beartooth. And here we go. Travis Niemeyer, Principal, Beartooth Elementary. We made it. Episode number 50. Let's do this. So hey man, I gotta tell you, dude, I'm excited for this one. I've been secretly been a fan of yours online, like kind of watching what you're doing, what your school's doing, and seeing the things that you post, and like I know, I don't judge the book by the cover, but damn, man, some of the stuff that you guys are doing, and your whole approach to leadership and school, and just how conscientious of how you approach all of that is, dude, like it's inspiring.
Well, thanks. I've been a fan of yours, man. I've been following you now for well over a year. And I love the stuff you put out there. To me, it just speaks to me. And I think it's also just the way in which you say it. I mean, it just has a genuine, natural feel to it. And I know that's the way I think that's why people like your podcast so much, man, that, it's just down to earth. I mean, it's real in the moment, just thoughts, let's just have the dialogue, I love that. I love that. So I'm excited. This is going to be fun.
It is fun, man. I had a guy ask me today, hey, man, what he said, he's not an educator, but he's going to come on. The reason I want him on, because he has six kids. They're all boys. They're all like within, months and years apart, and they're all in school, and I want to hear his take on the whole education thing. Because he's a parent, but he's probably an expert in education on some level. And you have that many different learning styles and that many personalities show up, and you have to deal with all that. But he was asking me, hey man, how can I prepare for this? I'm like, prepare. Dude, we're just going to talk, and whatever happens is what happens. Hopefully that, my whole goal is what we can do is just be completely, authentic and in the moment and real. And there's bound to be a nugget or two of something in there that people can use and take away.
Yeah.
So hey, man. Yeah, let's get into it, man. So, take me back, man. So I'm always fascinated, with men in education. It's a really, heavily female dominated, place, and especially in the earlier grades. And I'm always fascinated with like those initial thoughts. Like, when did that happen for you? When did you think, you know what, man, I could do this. I could do this teaching thing. Was it something you always knew, or was it later in life? Was it, because what I found honestly is, for a lot of women, it's, It's they just it was always who they were, like from the very early start. And oftentimes with men, it was like they had that influential person in their life, or a teacher, or a coach, or a band director, or somebody they thought, I want to do what that person does.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I think it's just growing up. I worked with kids all the time. I loved babysitting kids around the neighborhood, and where parents dropped me off at their house to babysit, and just have fun with the kids for a while, engage with them, get to know them. And then, gosh, by the time I hit high school, I grew up as a pool rat. I grew up in a real small town with 5,000 people, and the biggest attraction all summer long was the pool. It was a community pool. Yeah. And that's where all the kids hung out, And so I remember we always called it the big pool. That's where everybody hung out, because it was the one large pool that was in town. So we would just go there all the time. And I think I don't know. And then for me, then it was logical. When I got to high school, I just started teaching swim lessons, because I just grew up in a pool. So I started teaching swim lessons to all kinds of kids. And I mean, already at that age of, 16 years old, 17 years old, teaching swim lessons, I was already starting to think about differentiation and how do I do things differently for this kid? Or, I'd have kids that, didn't have their entire arm, or, that were super, I don't want to say underdeveloped, but maybe real small for their age. And so they couldn't keep up with the bigger kids. So how are we going to help them keep up with the bigger kids so they don't feel defeated and still feel good about themselves? And, so just coming up through that venue, I think, and then it just seemed logical to get in there. There was one influential person, I think, that along the way, and it was actually kind of a negative. It was a teacher that I didn't think was doing the right thing, and I was so frustrated sitting through his math class. I think that might have been the moment for me where I said, you know what, I'm going to make sure no kid has to sit through a math class like this again. Like, this is so bad and so poor. How could anybody do this? And so I initially started into college going into math education. I wanted to go teach math. And I think that's what kind of started me off. And then after being in college for a while, I thought, maybe not math. I'll be honest with you. I was an athlete at the time. And so the last part of our season was weeks long. There were probably, I think, 8 weeks. And out of those 8 weeks, we missed 4 weeks of school, like solid weeks of school. And it was right before finals time. And so I came back and had to take a finals for calculus. And I didn't pass it. I failed the class. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I got to go to summer school. And,
right.
All this. At that point for me, I thought, well, maybe not math education. I'll go down to elementary education and do it that way. Because really, I think that's where my heart was anyways, with elementary school. And,
sure.
But yeah, so, from there, it's just, I don't know, just kind of logical progression, just working with kids so much. And that one person, I thought, I'm going to make sure no kid has to do this. Like, it's got to be more exciting than this. Education's got to be better than this.
Man, in my workshop, one of the things we always talk about is, we talk about those most influential teachers that we've had, and we all have them, right? They're all out there, and rarely it happens, but it's rarely does someone really have the courage to step up and say, hey man, like, I had an influential teacher and it wasn't so good, and this is why I do it. And oftentimes, usually, I have it kind of a mathematically figured out. It usually takes about 50 people in the group, where it's like 1 out of 50 that really, like, one of the strong reasons they come into this business is because they had that teacher that was really challenging for them. And it was like, it was just that personality that it's almost that they've accepted this heroic role to make sure that kids in their life didn't have to go through what they went through. Yeah,
and you choose an interesting word there too, talking about heroic role. I don't know if I would say it's heroic, but teachers are, man. Every day they're heroes. The things that they do. I don't see myself that way, but my teachers in my building, I certainly do. They change lives every day. They are game changers.
Here's the thing, man. No hero thinks of their role as heroic. Like, that's how you know. Like, the moment you think you're the hero, that means you're not, man. You know what I mean? No,
but my teachers are. Seriously, I can't. I got teachers that have taken in kids in their homes. I got that are just tough situations. I got, man, and the hours they spend after, how it is. You've been in this long enough that, man, they go out of their way to do everything they can to make sure these kids are taken care of, not just when they're there in the schoolhouse during the day, but when they go home at night. And, some of our schools too, you take those kids home every day, no matter what. You're taking them home in your heart and your mind.
Yep.
Those kids are always with you. So, I don't know. It is. They're heroic, man. Our teachers are amazing.
Dude, I call it the it's like, we have this student apartment complex that lives in your mind and your heart. Like, and you can't evict them. Like, they're in there forever. They rent
Forever.
space
Yeah.
in your heart, in your mind. They are tenants in your apartment complex you have in your noggin and in your heart for the rest of your life, man. And you're right, man. Like, here's the thing that I think, like, I'm not good at a whole lot of stuff, but one thing I'm really good at, I think, is being able to spot those heroic moments that as educators we become numb to. Because here's the thing, like, because we're in it every day, like we're in the story of these kids' life, oftentimes we don't stop and recognize these moments where a life was just changed in that moment. I can't even tell you how many times I've been in a school and I'll see something go down in the hallway, just a teacher hugging a kid, and it's like in their mind it's not even a thought. They just go on with the rest of their day, and I have to say, wait, 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 wait. I want you to recognize it. Like, you just changed the life of a child, man. Like, that kid is on. Like, you have to think about the trajectory. This kid is on a whole different path right now because of what just happened here at 9:05 in the a.m. today. And
Right.
I really hope, in terms of leadership on campuses or just peer to peer in the hallway, that we can really get in touch with recognizing those moments and celebrating those moments.
Yeah. I've got a couple of pictures I've taken of those moments where, like I had a teacher that there was a kid outside of a gym and I was just walking down the hallway and the kid's just sitting there sobbing. And I had no idea why. Like, you're coming out of PE crying. Like, what happened? I don't think anything happened in PE. They just started their day that way. It was just a rough day.
Yep.
And I walk around the corner and I see this teacher who's taller than I am, and she's all, sitting crisscross on the floor, one arm around the kid, one arm kind of holding herself on the floor, and just whispering and talking to this kid, rubbing their back, consoling this kid, and the kid is just sobbing. And I stop and take a picture. I'm thinking, okay, wait, I can't get the kid's face, right? Because if I want to post this on, but then I take the picture,
Yeah.
and I've got a couple of these, and later I don't even know what to do with the picture because I don't want to post it
Yeah.
and have somebody recognize the kid. But that's that moment you were just talking about. That could have been that life-changing moment for that kid when said, you know what? I got one more adult now that's in my corner that's going to cheer for me no matter what. That's got my back. That's going to be there. I'm okay. I'm going to get through this. Exactly.
And here's the thing, man. Like, academically, that kid is on a new path because they're on the trust, and there's this connection with this person, education, their teacher. But even more than that, like, and fine, the kid's gonna learn something that day. But what's even more than that, now inside of this kid is, this is what you do. This is how you help people, and this kid is going to be a better person and a better parent, all because of what happened in the hallway outside of PE on that morning.
Yeah. And you think of the people then that kid could possibly impact, whether it's kids within the class, whatever they decide to do in their profession, and then even their own kids, there's kids, and it just keeps on, it just keeps going. I mean, it's exponential sometimes that we don't always realize how far that small moment,
Yeah,
that tender moment, far that can reach.
dude, I'll tell you, because here's the latest research. And what it is, this in like the sociological fields of study, this is the latest research. On average, everybody walking around will have an impact on 10,000 lives. That's the average. All right, so now if you start calculating that, like, how many kids is in your school, how many kids are in a typical classroom? How many kids does a typical teacher have in that classroom?
Well, on average, I'd say probably 20, 24.
There you go. There's 24 times 10,000. So it's not those 24 kids. It's the 240,000 people those kids are going to go on an impact. Now, that's just this year, brother. So you have to ask a teacher, how long have you taught? How many years have you been in this game? If they've been in this game, now, okay, 10 years, well, a decade, well, we're talking about 2.4 million people are impacted. So when we start calculating this thing and putting numbers to it, and this is what I love, like in these events that I do, because what we'll do is, like if I'm in a smaller community, I can stand and we can find who's been here the longest. How many kids have they had? And then I'll say who in this school system, in this district, has had her as a teacher. And like without, there's always somebody that grew up in that district that came back to teach, and 3 or 4 people stand up. So we start calculating this crazy number. It's really staggering mathematically when we talk about that exponential impact that you refer to.
Yeah. And powerful, man. I mean, the power that we possess and that we have every day when we walk in, we can't lose sight of that.
Yeah.
Because we have an awesome responsibility and power every single day to impact a kid's life one way or another, and hopefully we find ourselves on the right side of the coin more often than not. But every once in a while, we're still human. Every once in a while, we break down. We have a bad moment. We
Yeah.
got to reflect and do better the next day. But that's just the reality of it. You know.
This is part of the deal, and it's almost as if you don't have a, because this is like an emotionally based gig, like it's all about the heart and the emotion and the passion, and it's almost as if you don't have a bad day, you're probably not in it. Like your heart's not in it, man. Like if you can do this thing in such a logical way and kind of calculate it in your brain, then I don't know. I've never met that teacher that has that kind of an impact that really has like this total 100% cerebral approach to the profession.
Yeah. And we do. We have, gosh, I talk to my teachers about that all the time with, this is tough because like we talked about before, that apartment complex that's in your mind and your heart every day when you go home,
Yeah.
you take those kids with you everywhere you go. And it's for a lifetime. I mean, we're lucky enough sometimes to have a kid reach out, years later after they come back or when they're in college or after college where they reach out, maybe they try to find you on Facebook or they do something like that, it's like, hey, you made a difference. I mean, those are those moments that keep you going for another 20 years,
Yeah.
because it's you're so invested every single day that, yeah, if you're not getting your heart broken and if you're not going home crying once in a while, or having a rough day, I agree with you. Your heart's, but I don't know any educators that don't, because
Right.
that's into that, it's,
Yeah.
but it's hard. It's that's what makes this job, I think, so difficult sometimes, is that it's such an emotional draw,
It really
you
is, man.
know?
I used to years ago, my last about 10 years of teaching, I ran a mentoring program. It was all for seniors in high school. And we would go to elementary schools. We'd get on the bus and travel to an elementary school every day. And each one of my seniors would have a little buddy in these elementary schools they would mentor. And so we pair them up, and like that's their kid for the year. So every Tuesday they go see that kid at that school, and like the whole assignment is, all right, man, you got 48 minutes once a week for the next 36 weeks. Go change that kid's life. And it was such an emotional roller coaster for those kids, because the reason they got paired up with a child is like that, because that kid needs them. We're not hanging out with like the superstars of the elementary school, brother. And but like I remember one year our class shirts, it said on the back, if you're not crying, you're not trying.
I like that.
Which is so true in this business, and even as seniors in high school, like they totally got it. And because once you get invested in this kid's life, you want so much for that kid that it's those tiny moments of either success, or you feel like you didn't make a difference on that day. Either way, you're crying, like because of happiness or because of disappointment. It's
Yeah.
and you're right, man. And those emotions, it's almost addictive.
And it is. And we don't always see that change either. And that's the thing that it's hard sometimes to relate to teachers to make sure that they don't lose sight of that, it's sometimes it feels like such a slow progression because you see this,
Yeah.
or they sometimes don't see this change because it happens over 180 days, or sometimes it happens over 360 days because it's 2 years long, and so,
Yeah.
and once they get out of their room, sometimes then they can see it the next year, like, man, that kid's come a long way. You've done a great job. And I have to go back and remind that teacher, no. That started back 180 days before. Like, this was way back when you were still doing this, and we had the tears, and we were in my office crying and talking about this kid and having meetings. How are we going to help? What are we going to do? That happened way back then. That set the course. That set that trajectory for that kid. So it's been everybody along the way that's made an impact on this kid.
Yeah.
Parents, after school programs, it's everything that's kind of chugged along and helped this kid. And it's hard to see that sometimes.
Dude,
And
it's hard to see that almost every time. I can't even after like a quarter century teaching, and they would still fake me out every time. Like I would think at the end of the year, I accomplished nothing. Like the kid hated me. He hated everything we did. He gave me the finger. He said nasty things about my mom, But then I would see that same kid at Walmart 4 years later, and he'd run up, boom, and oh my God, man, I loved your class. That was the best year. I'm like, dude, you gave me the finger. Like, what are you talking about? No, man, it was awesome. Thank you so much. And like, I would be so convinced in the moment that I accomplished nothing with the kid. And like, it never, even after 25 years, dude, I would get faked out every time.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are those powerful moments too, though, when you realize that, God, I did have an impact on this kid. Cause there's some, you feel like you didn't. You feel like you failed. You feel like you didn't reach that kid. You felt like you said, like, I didn't teach this kid anything. Like, he just didn't get this. You're like,
Yeah.
what did we do? And then, yeah, like you said, 4 aisles down the store, and they're shouting at you, "Hey, Mr. Niemeyer, Mr. Niemeyer!" They're running up to you like, "What? You remember my name? Like, I'd be good with that."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Hey man, I gotta ask you when John, when your brother from another mother, John, he posted
Yeah,
that.
buddy John,
Man, was that you in the green suit?
that was me. Yes, it was. You know, we've adopted the Ron Clark Academy house system. We're
Yeah.
doing some of that stuff. So um, we do our house meetings every other Friday, and every once in a while I don the green suit. Sometimes because I'm in the greenhouse, that's my team. So I got this nice green suit. I got a green hat. You didn't see the hat in the video, but yeah, we go all out. We just have fun with it, and then since then I've gotten superhero suits and just all kinds of stuff, and it's just to make the kids smile and make their day. So, and to me, that's what it's about.
People ask me about the house system, and I don't know. Okay, well, first let me just qualify this by saying I'm talking about those schools who go 100% all in and buy in. I'm not talking about, yeah, we're going to try it. Not those schools. But I'm not sure I've ever seen a more powerful shift in culture over an extremely short amount of time than those schools that go all in and buy into the house system and really get kids connected to a family like that. And I'm talking like at all levels. I'm talking like early education all the way through middle school and even certain high schools I've seen. It is powerful.
Yeah, yeah. And I wish we could get it going a little bit more throughout more schools here in town, because I think a lot of our schools feel like, oh, it's an elementary thing, because that's kind of where we started. Some of it was in elementary schools, But my whole reason for doing it, I was at a school that was about 80% free reduced lunch, and we didn't have a lot of unity throughout our grade levels. We had our buddy classrooms, where they would go down, like you were saying, where they would meet maybe once a week and read with them or do a project, and then as the year went on, maybe it turned into once every other week, and by the end of the year, it was maybe once a month they would get together. Just it's hard to keep that going. So our kids just didn't have any unity amongst our student body. And so I was looking for something to say, we gotta bring these kids together under one kind of common purpose and common goal, and get them to know each other and be there for each other. And man, the house system, it changed everything we did. It changed everything that the kids stood for. They bought into it. It was a game changer for our school, and it's still going. It's still going well at that school. I've since left and moved to another school and started there. And man, I love it. I just love giving those kids a place to feel like they belong, and to have, like, I love the fact you use the word family, because I think that's how we try to approach it. Is that, we're all a family of our entire school, but this is where you go to really build that up and try to make a difference in that. We also do service projects. Each house has to do a service project within the community every year, and we got our Blue House right now just finished up. They've got, I don't know, I think John posted actually. We probably got close to about 1,000 books that a kid had broken both ankles and had to go to the hospital. And he was shocked that when he was in there were no kids' books. There's no kids' books in the hospital for a kid to sit in a hospital room with, both legs broken. You can't read a book. So he came back. He's like, and he was telling me about this. I said, well, let's do something. He's like, well, that's why I want to talk to you, Mr. Niemeyer. I wonder if we could do a house project for that, and that could be our community service project. Like, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Let's do it. So he organized this whole thing with his blue team, and we got all these books at the office, and we're trying to box them up and get them taken to the hospitals and things like that. But those are ways that kids can certainly empower themselves and realize that I can make a difference in the community for lots of people.
Man, here's the thing, like without the house system, and let's just assume, I don't know the kid, but let's assume this is not a scouting kid, this is not a youth group kid, but who knows? But for certain kids in a school without the house system, that kid would have never had that thought that let's do something. Like, he would never have occurred to him that, hey, when you see a need in the community, you take action, you gather around all your family at school and you make it happen. Like, the fact that there's a house system in place and a community service project attached to the family has given that kid now the thought, and now it's changed who the kid is for the rest of his life. He knows when he sees a need, he gathers up his group of people and his family, whoever that is at the time, his extended family, his family at the house or in his workplace, and you fill the need.
Yeah. And people will come. people will support you for that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. I want them to understand too is, the idea, then the action, and people will come. You build it, they will come, right? I mean, you have a vision, you have a dream, and people will gather around that. So
it's powerful,
empower
man.
these kids.
Man, I love it. And I got to tell you, there's a school here in town, just outside of Houston. I take a lot of teachers to, and not so much this year, but last year I took a ton of teachers out there. It's called Polly Ryan Middle School. It's a 6th grade school. And they are deep into the house system. I mean, deep. And the reason they're so good, by the way, is because it's a 6th grade only school. They have to recreate this thing every year from scratch. There's no 7th and 8th graders where kids can learn from. And so they're experts at launching it because they have to relaunch it every year with new kids. And I take teachers there to see it, and it is shocking. There's a couple things that is shocking for teachers never seen this. And one is how quickly those kids can go from their morning celebration, pep rally, family time where they're competing and cheering and they're dressed up and it's color out day and they have crazy wigs on and tutus and feather boas and in their 4 different colors, and how intense it is. Like it's at a level 10 of craziness, but when the bell rings and it's time to go to class, within 6 minutes, it's that same level of intensity, but kids learning, actively engaged and collaborating in classrooms. And it's like to see that happen that fast. And what I love about it is an opportunity for teachers to see what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's it. Cause for me, it all starts with that vision. I had a chance to go to RCA and kind of see that live and in action. And, and until you get a chance, and I'm glad you're taking teachers there, because until you get a chance to see that, it is just kind of a vision without a true vision. It's hard to see what it can really be. But man, once you get see a school that's really rocking in it and doing it, man, to see what it can be. That's why I love, like John Conan and I was sharing ideas all the time, man. He's posting pictures, I posted pictures, and I never feel like I'm competing with him, but we're always sharing those ideas and always trying to steal one from the next one, and how we can make it a little better and how we can build on it. We're changing notes back and forth about, so what worked here and what didn't, how should I tweak it? And we're both so willing to share and put things out that he's a great partner to have. And he can always energize me too. And that's the thing, you need people like that can turn around and energize you and make you keep going. Because there are days when, again, like we talked about at the beginning, there are days when we're tired, man. We put everything into this and it's been a rough day, whatever the case. Maybe you brought home some of that baggage, or just had a rough day and felt like your heart's been ripped out and thrown on the floor. You said kid giving you the middle finger, all those things that happened that day, right?
Yeah. And
you get home and, man, I know there's always something. First off, my family. My wife's a teacher too, so we live and breathe this thing all day long. So, I can always come home and visit with her. But man, if I'm looking for some inspiration, I can call John and say, "What are you guys doing over there?" Or like, just tell me what's going on. I just need to hear some things and get going again, because it's just inspiring to hear some things that are going on up there at Lincoln Elementary School with John. So I love that stuff.
Man, it's so. That's the thing about this gig. It's finding those people, where it's a school leaders or classroom teachers or everybody at every level throughout a school, is finding those people that you can partner with in terms of like getting each other excited and fired up and helping us remember what we're really supposed to be doing in this thing, and changing kids' lives. Because you're right, man, it is so emotionally. Like at some point you're going to cry, man. It's like it's so emotionally hard at times, and to walk into that school and keeping in mind, like I am solely in charge of school culture, and I'm talking about everybody, not just the principal. I'm talking about everybody on campus. Like you are individually, every teacher, every custodian, food service worker, like everybody's in charge of school culture, and to get yourself in that frame of mind where you can walk onto campus and remember that like you have to have people who can support you.
Yeah. And that's where you start with that you start as so that green suit you said, right? Yeah. That's my thing every day is, we started off with, we got a surveillance camera outside and we got doors that lock. You have to press a button to let kids in, all this stuff. Well, there's this, half an hour time period where you got 300 kids walking in the door. And my secretary is trying to answer phones, taking care of kids that are coming in already feeling a little bit sick, doing all that kind of stuff. I thought, we can't sit here and press a button 300 times. and I can't just leave the door open and have kids do it because they don't know the parents and they don't know, community members that might be coming in, that kind of thing. So my secretary and I just said, we're not going to answer the phone unless somebody's truly available. And we're going to try out to be out greeting kids every single day. We got to start doing the right things to build that culture and make this happen. So when these kids come in, they see me in a funky green suit. Sometimes I got my green glasses on, they're real big aviators, or I have my green hat, whatever the case, but I'm always trying to be super cheerful, saying hello, greeting them, shaking hands, working on some of those essential skills we talk about every day anyway. And it's amazing sometimes the kids that you can tell they're just having a little bit of a rough day. And as soon as I open, because I try to leave the door closed, especially in the winter when, 6 months out of our school year are, between 20 degrees and above zero and 20 degrees below zero.
Right.
So you open and close the door a lot, but to open that door and you see them, you're like, hey, good morning. I'm so glad you're here. And their face just changes. You can see them through the glass. They're not having a good day, but you open the door with a big smile and be like, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Man, I miss you. Or, gosh, I feel like it's been forever and I just saw you yesterday. And they just get this smile on their face.
Yeah, man, it is huge. Here's the inside secret for my work at high schools. Like I would never say this, and this is just a secret between me and you, not those listening.
And the other people watching.
No, the secret of my work in high schools or secondary schools, I'm trying to get them to run like an elementary school. That's the secret. When I'll have a high school principal ask me, or tell me, man, I can't get my teachers greeting kids at the door. Like they just don't do that. Which, like in elementary, that's kind of part because you're supposed to take inventory first of all. You're supposed to keep track of them at the elementary. At the high school, we're gonna lose a few along the way. But my first question like, are you greeting your teachers at the door? Like, are you greeting kids at the door? Like when the kids are coming in the morning, who's greeting those kids? Because it's just like our kids. Like if we want our kids to do it, we have to be it so they can see it. I got to show it so I can grow it in the kid. But it's the same thing for adults, man. Like if we want our teachers doing that same thing, they have to see us doing. We have to see the model of what that looks like so they can see what it feels like for the recipient of that greet so that they can want the same thing for their kids.
Well, and it's funny because I tell my teachers all the time, you want to change, like if you come into school and you're having a bad day or you're having a rough morning, come down and be the greeter in the morning. It will change your day because it's almost like some of the other things that sometimes I feel like, teaching and everything we do is almost sometimes it feels a little bit selfish because I get just as much out of it, I think, and sometimes even more than the kids do. So if I stand at that door and greet those kids, that changes my morning. If I'm having a rough morning, I know I want to be out at that door, because they walk in through me. Then they walk right in through the foyer, and then they see my secretary. They walk a few more feet. They see my counselor who's giving them high fives. They walk into the gym where we have all the kids gather in the morning and sit at tables and visit. And I got another specialist that's in there greeting kids and talking to kids. So by the time they even get to breakfast in the morning, they've passed 4 different adults that are like smiles on their faces. How are you? Good to see you. We missed you. Glad you're here today. And again, for us, it does more, I think, sometimes for us than it does for the kids.
Yeah.
But man, it's a place to be in the schoolhouse at 8 between 7:45 and 8:30 in the morning. Best place to be.
Man, I tell you, I always say that the reason educators are just amazing people is because you become all that you give away. And that's to say, if you are encouraging lots of kids, you become super courageous in your life. And if you're, filling kids full of it with, excitement you become excited about things in your life. But, it's not just on a macro version across someone's lifetime, but dude, like it happens in a moment. Like it happens on the micro. Like if you are having a bad day, go greet a bunch of kids, man. Like go get fired up, and you're going to become all that you give away. It happens every time.
Yeah. And there's also those tender moments too. When a kid walks in, they've had a rough day, and they're walking up, and you can see the tears.
Yeah.
And you get down and you're like, "Are you okay?" And you just show them that what, I'm here for you. So you go in if you need to come back and visit. Do you need to go sit in my office for a few minutes? And again, they go from me to the secretary that's right there that gives them a hug. The counselor saying, hey, you want to go talk? They're not going to get too far without all these people saying, hey, we love you. We're here for you. We got you today. Don't worry about the other stuff. You're here now. We got you. Everything will be all right. And, and I hate that. Part of me hates to say that because we don't say that to them that everything's going to be all right. But we're like, we're here. We got you. Because you tell that kid that is having a tough time and you don't know what kind of home they're coming from, hey, everything's going to be all right, you're lying. Yeah. You don't know that kid's life, and you don't know what they're going home to, or you don't know where they just came from. So you got to be careful with the words you choose there. But even still, I think that we got you. You're here now. We got you. You know, I'm here for you. So you let me know what I can do. And that's the message. And we don't ever, I don't think we ever say, you're here now. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be good. Because you don't want to get stuck in that one.
Hey man, it's true. I'm glad you brought that up, dude. One of the first lessons when we would talk about I was running that I haven't thought about this in a long time, but one of the first things we would talk about when we go visit our kids, when I finally pair them up and with our mentoring kids, my seniors and my little kids at the elementary school, I have to train them. We have to rehearse it so many times. You never say, "Hey man, how's it going?" Hey, like that kid is with you for a reason. Like the counselor has identified that one kid out of hundreds to pair up with you for a so what we
Right.
do, man, is what we would model and rehearse over and over, so it all becomes second nature to him. Is you say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad, man, I'm so glad you're here today, man. I couldn't wait to tell you. Hey, guess what happened? I mean, I couldn't wait to tell you." And so we rehearse because what the psychology is like when something great happens in your life, who's the first person you call? And he could like, "Well, I call my best friend." That's right. So it's like built on this psychological presupposition, like when something happens. So what we do is we think about so on the bus ride to the school, I have all my seniors thinking, "Hey man, what's the best thing that's happened in your life in the last 24 hours? Something small, like maybe you got some frozen yogurt. Maybe, you talked to your best friend. Maybe it's something little that you can share. So when you see your kid, "Oh my gosh, I couldn't wait to tell you, guess what happened?" And you share that moment. And like that right there builds a level of friendship and trust. And it's beautiful, man.
It is. It is. And that frozen yogurt was the best frozen yogurt you've had in weeks. You know what
Done.
I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
you got to smell that. You can't,
Yeah.
you can't talk about the frozen yogurt. It's got to be the best frozen yogurt. Yeah. And I find myself sometimes, I find myself asking about, "Hey, how was the weekend? What'd you do this weekend?" And every time I say it, I'm like, but I hope I said that to the right kid, because you don't
Right.
know. That kid right there could just break down or lose, or
Yeah.
you hear, some little kids, man, some of these kids are so honest too. And you ask that question wrong, kid, they're like, "Nothing sucked," they'll say something like that. You're like, "Oh no," and you catch yourself like, "Well, was there something good? Did you watch a good show on TV? Was there, and of course, once you've opened that door, it's like, "No, nothing," and so
Right. They're kids, man.
you just have to chalk that one up and go, "Yeah, I asked the wrong question."
Yeah.
You got to be careful with that stuff. And again, like you said, it's always got to be about, making the connection with the kid.
Man,
How do
that's really where the magic happens. And I had a guy, I talked to a teacher of the year from El Paso, Texas the other day, and he just made he's a really young teacher, and he's so just naturally gifted and naturally good, and really can identify with the students. And he was talking about the fact that like it's some of those teachers that have like every strategy and they had the pedagogy and they're expert in their content, but yet oftentimes you'll see that teacher who is lesser in all those areas out teach those teachers just because of the relationship that they're able to build with their classroom family that they create for their kids.
yeah, those relationships are everything, man. That was a guy that you had on that was he taught in the same neighborhood
Yeah.
that he grew up. Yeah. I listened to that podcast. Yeah.
That's a strong dude, and that's certainly not me, but to see, I mean, here he is standing before his kids. I mean, just 10 years later, like he's 10 years later, and he's got the tattoos and the style, and he's got the same language and the vernacular, and he's from the neighborhood, and for them to like that, for me or you to stand before those kids, it's almost as if that's a whole different thing. Like I'm not that guy. I'm not
Yeah.
bald.
Yeah.
I'm not 50, you know.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
they can identify with him because he can talk. He can tell stories that they're telling right now because he lived in that same complex.
Yeah. Same neighborhood. He knows the neighborhood stories, knows all the dialect, the language, the custom.
Yep.
Customs really it is. It's customary. It's yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. The crazy lady that still lives in 23C and she still,
Crazy cat lady or whatever it is. Yeah.
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 I just
I love
love that those kids have and have him and man, that's the thing about teaching. Like those people that are drawn to this thing and stay in it, like it's so much a part of who they are. It's almost as if it's not something they want to do, like at this point, because this profession has become so hard, it's something they have to do.
Right. And it's about being real too. I think that's a big thing with those kids. Like you said, he can talk everything, he knows the stories, he knows those things, but he's real then. He's a real guy standing in front of them that they can understand versus this college educated person that's now been set in that place to teach these kids to try to get them out of a place or to get them to a place or get them down this road where, and they know nothing about what these kids are going through. And by a certain age, the kids get that.
Yep.
They get, you don't know me. You can't tell me. You've never been here. You don't know what obstacles I'm facing. But when he's up there, yeah, he does.
Yep.
Or that speaks volumes.
Man, that whole concept of being real, that is something I've been fascinated with on not just, for him, it's certainly a different level because, they can see themselves in him, but even for all of us, man, because, when I was growing up, I've talked about this a couple of times, but when I was growing up, I respected my teachers, in front of them, of course, when they were watching me, be, and because it was my parents, like they told me to, like, so I did it, right? And so when the level of respect have dropped over the years, I really thought, well, these kids just don't have parents like I had parents. But then as a teacher, I met a whole bunch of amazing parents with knucklehead kids. And so I thought, well, wait a minute, they're doing a great job. What's up with that kid? And then so here's my latest working theory is the reason that we see a drop in the level of respect for adults and teachers specifically is like the reason I was respectful now what I know looking back is because I didn't know the truth. Like at that age, I thought all adults were amazing because I didn't know, but now these kids know because every day they see online, they see on the news, they see somewhere some like amazingly respected adult, they see the fall from grace. Like, I mean, just going on with our political figures and athletes and the trouble they get themselves into, celebrities and music stars, political, I mean, the president, the religious leaders, like every day there's some other salacious story of this really respected person, the fall from grace. So a kid really does think subconsciously about adults, like, why should I respect you? Like, there's no telling what you're capable of. Look what I see on the news all the time. And dude, like, I think you're right. I really think it is those teachers that can be completely authentic and real, whatever that is, in front of their kids. Like that's what we have left.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point because I think that for me, every time I'm talking to a kid, I'm like, I was little. I know exactly what you're thinking. If you could, because I get some kids sometimes, and one of the first things I ask them is, you think I should sit here and yell at you for this? And I love sometimes the look on their face like, you're not going to yell at me? Like that's what principals are supposed to do or something, And
you get paid to yell at people.
Yeah. You're like, no, we're just going to talk about this. And they kind of look at you like, really? Almost like doubting that, no, that's not what goes on here. I know you're going to yell at me and I'm going to be in big trouble. It's like, no, because let me tell you what I know. When I was young, I got in a lot of trouble. And my parents yelled at me a lot. And the thoughts that went through my head when they were yelling at me, it had nothing to do with what I had done wrong or what my consequence was going to be. I was thinking of all the bad names I could call them in my head while they were sitting there yelling at me. That's all I thought about. So I know that if I sit here and just yell at you, you're not going to be thinking about what we're talking about. We're just wasting our time. So when you're ready to listen and you're ready to talk in the same tone of voice that I'm talking in, we'll have a conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's it. It's about being real. I know this. Like when adults yelled at me as a kid, man, I was tuned out. I'm not listening to you. We're done.
Yep.
Conversation's over. And we know that now just from research and everything else. That's how people work. That's that fight or flight. And that's, I'm not going to get into this. I'm not, we know it's got to be a rational conversation. When you're screaming and yelling, you're not rational. And so, man, that's a big one for me is that whole thing about being real and as we interact with kids, remember when you were a kid, you did that same stuff. These kids haven't changed that much from when we were kids, honestly.
Yeah.
There's different tools sometimes, and there's different mechanisms in which to get into trouble, but we all did the same kind of nonsense, and just, it's okay. They'll make it through. I turned out all right. You did too. They'll make it.
Dude, I got in giant trouble. Yeah, and you know what? I came out on the other side. I'm fine. And I posted this thing the other day, and it said that kids, man, they never remember the consequence, but we hope possibly they have a potential to remember is the conversation. So, man, what I really hope is oftentimes when kids are in that office, like, yeah, we're going to give them the consequence. Of course, that's part of the deal. But what they're going to remember is the conversation that happened. And I've been in schools. Unfortunately, with some of our schools, there's so much behavior issues coming through. They've got
There's
30 kids lined up out the door, second period, that they have got written up in a school with 5,000 kids, and they're just cycling through trying to consequence. But really, if we could just take a moment, and even if it's a brief, I think sometimes we think it has to be like this monumental, life changing, epic dissertation of a conversation. But really, man, those can happen in moments.
yeah. Let me tell you, I guess this one kid in particular that and I don't have to do it too much now, but he'd come to the office and he would just be sitting there, arms crossed, breathing heavy, nostrils flaring, just mad, knowing he wasn't ready to process, wasn't gonna be ready to do anything. And I'd walk out and I'd say his name, I'd be like, and I could tell right away. And and I tried it one time and it worked. And I didn't do it every time then after, because otherwise it loses effectiveness, but
Yeah.
I stood up there and just looked at him for a minute and I thought, man, what am I gonna do with this kid? Like, none of your training prepares you for all this stuff, right? And so I'm sitting there looking, I said, you know what? And I just looked, and I said, stand up. And he said, his arms full, he just looks at me, and I said, you heard me? I said, stand up. And luckily, I already kind of had a relationship with him, so I knew I could say that. He'd follow my directions, not just sit there and refuse.
Hmm.
So he stands up, and I put my arms, I said, can I get a hug? And he looks at me, and I said, seriously, can I get a hug around here or what? He's like, all right. So he kind of reluctantly gives me a hug. I said, you got to squeeze tighter. You got to go tighter than that. Come on. We're dudes. We got to squeeze it out. Let's go.
Yeah.
And he's like squeezing pretty soon. He's like, oh, I'm like, yeah, now you're talking. Now I kind of shake him like this. I'm like, all right. I was like, now sit down. And he's got this big smile on his face. It's like right there. Like, it doesn't have to be, this kid just needed to get back on even keel.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now we can sit down and actually have a conversation. Tell me what happened.
Yeah.
Because, man, before he wasn't going to listen. He wasn't ready. But just just take the different approach, couple minutes, and he's got it. I try to tell our teachers and tell myself oftentimes too that sometimes we try to hold these 8, 9, 10-year-olds to a standard that we wouldn't even hold ourselves to. And I got this from another guy. Like most things in education, we steal things, and he taught me these 2 filters. He said, if somebody said or did something like that to you, and you would come back and work harder for them tomorrow, then you go ahead and do that to a kid. But if somebody says or does something like that to you and you wouldn't come back and work harder for them tomorrow, then don't do it to a kid either. And then the other one was, if you would say or do something like that to your own child, then go ahead and do it to this kid. But it's got to be okay if somebody else said or did that to your kid too, and that you would do that to your kid. And man, those 2 things have always stuck with me, because there are times I stop myself. I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. This kid just is like trying to have a real adult, like let's say some issues in school, right? Like talking about, I don't even want to say them on your podcast, but some things that are very adult conversations. And sometimes these are little 3rd graders that, man, they know this stuff already and they shouldn't be talking this way. They should know this information. And I sit there looking at this kid thinking, you are still the same age as my daughter. And man, I'm not having this conversation with you because if somebody else had this conversation with my daughter, I'd be upset. That is my conversation as a parent to have with my child, not a principal, not a teacher, not somebody else. I'm going to be the one that she hears this from first. And so I have to call a parent and say, hey, listen, this is the conversation I think that needs to be had, but I'm not willing to have that unless you're not willing to, and I will have it. But know that this is the conversation, this is the language, this is the level of knowledge your kid has. Somebody's got to make sure he's got the right information because, this kid's growing up way too fast. But those moments like that, man, I think are so important that we always have to remember. Those are tough ones.
They really are, man. And that first of all, that approach to getting the kid to stand up. What I always say. I'm there's a few people I follow, and and one of the guys I follow his name is Tony Robbins, and he has this whole approach about how physiology affects your emotions, and you can spend for years trying to change your emotions, but what you can do immediately is change your physiology. And of all the stuff that I've learned over the years, like that's the one thing when I have a kid really, and you can see he's sitting in a chair and he's get the face and his fists are balled up and his arms are crossed. Hey man, let's go for a walk. Let's talk while we walk. And just the fact that we're walking is going to change his physiology, and like you will always act congruently with how your body is moving. And the looser he gets, and the more relaxed he gets, the more that's what happens with his mind and his emotions. The more relaxed he'll become, and more looser his emotions. And now we can have the conversations that's going to change that kid's life. And right, dude, you're that whole concept of I love that nugget, man. Like if God, like will that kid work harder for you tomorrow because of that conversation you just had today, or is he going to shut it down? Like that is powerful. And I have to tell you, man, thinking about these kids as my own, like that's when everything shifted for me. Is
Yeah.
as an educator, and I have to tell you, man, I was before I had kids, I can remember sitting in a meeting with a parent, and I'm probably 25, 26 at the time, and I'm doing my thing, and I'm talking in the meeting, and I'm doing, and doing my thing, and telling her how things are, and she says, "Excuse me, sir." She's super polite. She goes, "Excuse me." She tapped on the desk, and "Excuse me." I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "You don't have kids, do you?" I said, "No." She goes, "Okay." And like at the moment, I thought she was so rude.
The moment you're totally offended.
Yeah, totally. But then as soon as I had kids, I was like, oh my God, that woman was right. Like I get it now. And
Yeah.
it changed everything for me. And that was it was two things. Like I always had in my mind is what like that's what I wanted for my own kids. And also when the kids came into the classroom, I really in my mind I knew it wasn't true. I know it's not true, but I made it true in my mind. As soon as they walked in my mind, they had nobody. It was me. Like I'm the parent, I'm the teacher, I'm the youth minister, I'm the scout leader, I'm the coach, I'm everything for every one of those kids. Because if I thought they had it all, dude, like I can miss one, and we just cannot afford to miss a kid.
Yeah. Amen, brother. Amen.
Yeah, it's here's the thing, man. Like, is the most it's like the most response. The level of responsibility of a teacher. It's awesome, but at the same time, it is terrifying.
It is. It is. Yeah. And I love your talk about physiology because once you start to change that, you can move that conversation and make it a more cerebral conversation. And you can be much more thought provoking. Much kids can actually then start to look down the road a little bit and talk about not necessarily talk about trajectory, but talk about future plans. Talk about down the road, what's this going to look like? What's going to happen if? I mean, all those things that sometimes we try to talk with kids about why it's important to change that behavior. I think sometimes we miss that one too. Like why? It's
Yeah,
not just because you're sitting here and that's why. Like why is this important down the road? Like, where do you need to be? Where do you want to be?
yeah,
And having some of those conversations too. I just, we've got some other principals in the district that have like little stationary bicycles in their offices and things like that, to do that, to give those kids that movement. Cause Montana, we can't always go out and take a walk. We can walk around the building, but we certainly can't go outside, because of weather. But, man, I just had a kid, that I actually part of his deal with being in my office and working through some of the things I had him write a letter. Cause I'd actually, I don't know, as dudes, as guys sometimes, and you're like this too, cause I know you work out a lot. Obviously I remember you had pictures or videos you were doing where you were like in a gym, or at least looked like you
yeah.
were in a gym. I don't know if that's your house or what, but,
It's a gym.
I know when I'm starting to get frustrated having my wife, if I come home and I'm in a funk, she'll say, you need to go work out. Like just get out of here, go do your thing and get yourself right again. And so I thought one day I'm going to try this on a couple kids. And so I had a total gym in my garage. So I took that sucker to school and I set it up. And when those kids came in, I was like, we're guys and here's here's how our bodies work. Here's how we think, sometimes we just need that push and pull, like that tight hug, that kind of stuff. What do you think about giving this thing a shot? And they're like, all right, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
So man, I got like 5 or 6 kids that work out in my office during the day and they come down and we do some total gym workouts. We're doing some bench presses, curls and doing things. And man, it changes their day. They can start off, have a better day. They can come down at lunch and work out if they need a lunch. Sometimes it's just open, come whenever you want. Sometimes it's by appointment. And now they're so good at it, they can come down and work it on their own if I'm not available. I mean, it's so cool to see that these kids now have a strategy that can be lifelong
Yeah.
to help regulate themselves and get themselves on the right track. And they can start to recognize it.
Man, I can get into some controversial territory, which I will not do. But I can tell you this, man, like for a boy in school, it and uh, for it's really difficult to talk about, but for a boy sitting in school crammed into a desk, and you think about just the containment of a typical desk in a classroom. There's like a little side door on here, but you're wrapped, this thing's wrapped around you, and there's the window, and the kid is staring at the tree outside, and he's thinking about, should I chop it down or should I climb it? Maybe I'll climb it first, then I'll chop it down. And then his teacher's front of him, and he's locked in this room, and he just wants to get out and move, and so many of our kids are these kinesthetic learners, man. That's how they learn. They want to move, and thank goodness in high school now we have so many of our CTE programs where they can be in welding and construction programs and things where that's how they learn, that's how they function, that's how they're going to live their life. And but in the elementary school, man, they're locked into these classrooms where they're single file, alphabetical order. So they might have a traditional old school teacher at the front where sit down, do the packet, and this kid is like, I've got to get out of here. I have a guy, he's going to come on in a few days. His name is Derek, and he's out of Colorado. His thing is called Stand Up Our Kids, and he is the inventor creator of a desk that you can stand up. So it has these desks that goes around the sides and the back of the room, and the kid can stand up and yank his desk up, and it's like it's height, so he can stand there and do his work. And I gotta tell you, dude, when I was in school, if I had a stand-up desk, I really think I would have been so much better off academically than had to be forced and sit here. Like, the only option, I can't pay attention. First of all, I can either sleep or what. That's about it. Like that, I can't. I think for some of our boys, they really need to more, just physical engagement like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I love again, some of the stuff that we're doing is all about that. It's all about trying to get kids to move and have a chance, even if just stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. I mean, just some kind of motion
Yeah.
to get the blood away from the center of your body and start getting it circulating everywhere else, because we know those things happen. We got to get those kids moving. And man, teachers do a great job of that, and they're aware of it. And they work their tails off to try to bring in some of that movement stuff like that. But it's always something we got to stay cognizant of, because it changes the game for a lot of those kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Here's the thing, dude. I rarely do I come across a principal who is just so proud of their teachers, and just, I mean, not only are they the principal, but more than that, man. Like they're a cheerleader for their staff, like you, and they're just it's really cool, like to hear someone like you who is like you're like a fan, like you're a fan of your teachers at your school, man. And I love it. I love it.
They do amazing things, man. I got, and they give me the same faith and trust too. Like how many teachers would allow you to take a kid and bring him down and put him on a total gym? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
That's a teacher that's going to give you a lot of leeway. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to keep him out of your room for 20 minutes and go through this process with this kid and bring him back in the middle of your math or in the middle of, a social time, whatever it may be. Like, and of course you work with them, try to find those times where you're not taking them out of instruction, because that's the last thing we want to do. But, sometimes the kid's not learning anything anyway. If they can't do anything else, they're not learning. So let's try. But man, they give me so much leeway, and I try to give them the same, because that's where that magic happens, when they have that flexibility and they know that they can think outside the box and do things different for these kids. And I got some teachers that just have creative, outstanding ideas, not just for our school, but for their kids and their classrooms and the things that they do. It's just so cool to see. I mean, I walk around, and that's the coolest thing about being a principal, honestly, is you get to walk around and see the brilliance and magic that happens everywhere. Yeah. As a teacher, you kind of isolate, and sometimes you can see a teacher doing something, or if you're walking down to, go to the bathroom, whatever, you might catch a moment. But man, principal, you get to walk around and see that stuff all day long. We just need to take notes and just share it out. Like, here's all the things going on here. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, look at this. Do you realize the things you guys do every single day that creates this magic for kids? And I think they lose sight of it, because again, it happens over 180 days.
Yep.
It seems like such a slow process, but man, that magic is firing off all the time.
Yeah. And, I really wish we did a better job at celebrating that, and like even the moment that you talked about in the hallway, there was a picture that went around, got super viral. It was a young man teacher, and he's in the hallway hugging a student. It's an elementary age student, and here's the male teacher hugging the kid, and this thing had like millions of views on this picture. And I thought to myself, like, first of all, let me just say, I love that people love that picture and I love that it happened. But at the same time, I'm thinking that's like a picture of an accountant working on his calculator got viral. Like, that's what we do, man. Like that,
Yeah.
what do you think is happening in this school? That's a teacher, man. Like that, like I'm glad, I mean, I love that people love it, but at the same time, it's what do you think is happening? Like, it happens thousands of times every day.
Yeah. All across the country. That
Yeah,
happens.
man, that's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
And maybe, and at the same time, I'm thinking maybe that's our fault as educators. Like we are not doing a good enough job sharing these magical moments that happen every day in our schools.
Yeah. Well, that gets into the whole conversation. Who's telling your story?
Yeah,
And we got to get this stuff out there because, man, there's that stuff happening all day long, every day. And I've asked my teachers when we're going to take pictures of stuff you're doing. Take pictures, send them to me. I'll put them on our social media. I'll put them out there, whatever. But send pictures. And again, our teachers are their worst critics oftentimes, and
yeah,
so they don't feel like what they're doing is anything magical, anything exciting. It's just like, it's another day. This is what we do.
right.
It's like, no, you don't get it. Like this is amazing. Like these kids and the things they're doing. I mean, the excitement on their face. If they have that excitement on their face, take a picture. Like that's awesome. And you've created that environment with 24 kids that are getting along and making this work and getting excited about learning. That's what we want to put out there. That's what happens every day.
Yeah,
Like and celebrate that. Celebrate yourself. But again, we're our own worst critics. We don't want to celebrate that stuff. And look like we're showboating or look like we're trying to toot our own horns, whatever the case. And like you said at the beginning, the last thing a hero is going to say is that they're a hero. And those teachers don't do it.
Man, what it really is making that shift. Man, it's not about you. This classroom, what we're doing is celebrating kids, and that is what this thing is really about. So if we take it out of the mind of the teacher and say, man, it's not about you. We're celebrating kids, and so I work with a ton of schools on helping schools tell their, to really control the narrative because I'm telling you, brother, like you said, if you don't tell your story, somebody will. And oftentimes it is this fictionalized negativity. It's so untrue. But like somebody contrived this story and they got mad at a teacher and posted something on Facebook and then they got crazy and well, that happened to my kid too. So a story is going to get told. The key is to tell the truth. And oftentimes when I work with schools, they get in the habit of, let's say they'll post the winner of the spelling bee. Like, okay, fine. Look at that. Fine. Let's celebrate the kid. But let me tell you.
I did that.
Yeah. But let me tell you what really moves emotion is like a third grader that was finger painting in class. And he's got paint on his face, and the teacher's paint on her face, and they take a picture together because that's what people can connect with, and like that's the magical moment. So yeah, we want to celebrate our, the science fair winner for sure, but at the same time, we want to celebrate a kid who got, his first 90 on a spelling test as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like you said, a kid that just drew that amazing picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it can be anything like that. Yeah. And that, yeah.
Like I said, man, I think just as educators, like we get numb to the magical moment because we see it all day long. These are life-changing moments that happen in classrooms for your teachers on your campus. It's happening all day long. And we just kind of we get that because that's just what happens at work today. A kid's life got changed and we just went on like when it ate tater tots at lunch. But like, wait a minute, man, let's stop and celebrate that kid's life was changed. I don't think we do a good enough job recognize it because it's our profession.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we never feel like we don't know that we made that impact.
Yeah.
We're kind of coming full circle here now, but we never realized that could have been that moment that changed that kid's trajectory, and made him embrace school, made him embrace the school, that he's going to be at for the next 3-4 years, or embrace education as a game-changing opportunity for him to excel, or found his passion or her passion. Like you said, that art project, that moment right there might have been the catalyst right there to just take that kid into orbit, and become the artist that they was already in there but hadn't yet
Yeah.
come out. Like that could be it. And that selfie with the marker all over the face or whatever, the paint's all over the face, like, yeah, check us out. Look what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like that right there is like, yeah, I want to do this forever. Like, this is the coolest thing.
Right.
You know, and you got an artist on your hand that's going to be changing the world, you know, and yeah, I love this stuff, man.
Dude, I love it so much. Dude, I get fired up talking about it. And here's the thing, man, is like that is why the kid remembers the content, is because of those emotions that they create, and now they become conditioned to associate those emotions with school and learning, whatever it is. And like, and if art is the kid's thing, that's awesome, or history or science or math or what, or athletics, it really doesn't matter. But all the kid knows is when he shows up to school, he has this emotion that feels fantastic, and he wants that to be, and that's why they remember the content, because of how they felt on that day.
Yep.
And you guys at the elementary school have the whole thing figured out. What I'm trying to do is transfer that into middle school and high schools, because it's the same thing applies. But we think because a kid has a beard, you know, that we forget. But it's still a kid. Just because it's a beard, it's still a kid.
Yeah, I love some of the things you put out too, with exactly saying that, you know, like, yeah, he looks like an adult. Yeah, he's got adult language. Yeah, he talks like this. Yeah, he acts this way. He's got this bravado. He's got a deep voice.
Yep.
All these things. But he is still a kid.
A child.
You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, I have to shake my head at sometimes the way that we let these kids make choices. Like, and you want to empower those kids, but you know what? When you're 9 years old, you don't get to choose if you're going to do, you know, A, B, or C. You are doing this because this is what you need to do.
Right.
You know, and obviously we want to always empower kids to make choices. I'm not trying to say that, but you know, there are things sometimes where you are still a child and this is what you got to do.
Yep.
You know, and yeah, I love that stuff you're putting out there.
Man, you know, I'm all about empowerment and choices for sure. But here's the thing, man. We are at point A. We're gonna get to point B. Now, along the way, you're gonna have some choices, but we are staying on the path. The point you can take a scenic route or you can take this route, but we are getting to point B. You know, so yeah, I want to empower kids to have some choice along the way, but at the same time, there's some non-negotiables with this deal.
Oh yeah. I like that. You got to get point A to point B. You got to graduate, or you at least got to come and get your GED. Whatever the case, you got to get on the right path. You know, or you know what? Any of these kids, honestly, sign up for one of those. Oh my gosh, one of those classes in the morning before school starts. I lost the language.
Yeah, it's called something different in every state, so I have no idea what it's called there.
You know, one of those gifted classes that, you know, the high school kids are taking, a CT class or whatever the case. You know, college credit, whatever, CTE, you know, get in there and take one of those classes, one of those honors classes before. Take that, you know, see what you can do in there, because, man, you can do that. You know, and sometimes they just need that one adult sitting there saying, give it a shot.
Yep.
Get out there, take a risk, and go for it. See what happens.
You know, that's the thing, man, is I can't tell you how many kids I've come across, or even adults, and you know, where I talk to people, whether I'm in the airport or on the road or whatever I'm doing. And here's the thing, man, everybody, without fail, everybody has a story about a teacher that made a difference in their life. And they can remember in detail conversations that they had with that teacher, the content, the words that were used, the situation. They remember down to minute details. Every person has that inside of them. And so in those conversations with our kids, like, you have to be asking yourself, is this the moment this kid is going to talk about for the rest of his life? It just might be. And here's the crazy part, brother, is when I talk to those people just randomly in public, I'll say, tell me about your most influential educator. And everybody has one. And then I'll say, all right, who's the second? Do you have a number two? And about half of them do. And so you have to ask yourself, like, when you're working with a kid in this moment, am I the one? Am I the first, or am I the last? It's one of those two. And when you think about it like that you might possibly be the last influential adult this kid in his life he's going to talk about, it changes everything about that conversation and how you process it and go about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. I hadn't thought of that. That's powerful.
Yeah, it really is. Like everybody has that person. Everybody has a teacher. Is that you? Like, thinking about that all day long as you're working with kids. Am I the person this kid's going to talk about at the 30-year reunion when they're sitting around the table talking about their wacky teachers? is it me that's going to come up in conversation that they talk about how I changed their life? Because I wanted, like, I'm selfish. Like, I know it's wrong. I get it. I know I'm selfish, but I really want it to be me.
Yeah. Well, you want it to be you because then you know you've made that impact.
Yeah.
That's just good. I mean, you can be that zany teacher they all talk about and make jokes about, but you want to be the one that they're talking about that, this guy, man, he put everything into me. He invested in me. He was amazing. He believed in every one of us. He didn't take any guff. He didn't, whatever it is, but they're going to know you always had their best interest in mind.
Yeah.
And like you said, but you've been spit on, middle finger, kicked, whatever, been all kinds of language, mama, whatever, all these things that they've ran through you. But man, they see you in the store and here they come running.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, what? You just, I never would have thought you would have treated me this way because you didn't treat me that way 4 years ago.
Right.
That's it. And that, for me, honestly, that's what drives me. For me, the whole business is an emotional game for me. And I shouldn't say game because I don't mean it like a game, like when I'm playing a game.
I get it.
It's all emotions for us. Yeah. And so for me, I want that kid to remember when they came to the school that I was in charge of or the classroom that I was in control of, like I want them to remember how that felt every day when they came in, and there'll be some of those moments where, maybe a kid had a rough day or I had a rough day or, things like that they'll remember how that was handled and they'll remember the way that it felt. They'll remember the way you treated them, treated their friends, treated the school, the respect you had. Man, like you said, if they're talking about that when they're 25, 35, 40 years old, man, I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah. And you know what? And here's like the exponential effect is in their approach to parenting their own kids. When their kids go to school, that's the memory they're going to share.
Yeah.
When they're walking their kid hand in hand down the hallway, on the first day of first grade, and they see those tears, coming down, how they kind of build up on that lower lid. They're not crying yet, but then the kid blinks a little too hard and pops one out and here, and the parent gets on one knee in the hallway and has that conversation. You're the teacher they're going to talk about. They're going to say, no, you don't have to cry. Those aren't tears of sadness. Those are tears of joy and wonder because you're about to meet your teacher. In fact, let me tell you about the best teacher I ever had. Yeah. And they're going to have a conversation about what happened with you in your classroom and how much they loved you. And that kid is going to change. The whole physiology is going to change. The emotion is going to change. And they're going to walk confidently into that first grade classroom ready to have their life impacted by that teacher. It pays it forward every time.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are those moments, man, and I've been lucky enough. I've had a few of those kids that have reached out, years later that have said, hey, you know what? I always knew you cared, and I always knew that was real, that was honest, it was genuine. I just had this kid recently. And again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything. Sorry, here I go. But I this was one of those kids where I wondered, did I even make a difference? Like, did this kid is he going to remember me when he walks out of these, like, he missed 40 some days of school over the course of the year, just to me, it felt like a struggle, but man, I did everything I could to try to hook that kid into learning. I moved things around within my day to try to get him to come earlier because I wanted to hook him and engage him in what we're doing with science because he loved some of the things we were doing. So I put that first thing in the morning, like, oh, I got to get him here. So he wants to be there and do this. And man, I walked and talked with him on the playground like we talked about. I tried to skateboard with him after school, out on the playground, all these kind of things we tried to do. And he just, God, it was sometime this year, back in maybe October. They reached out and sent me a message on Facebook and just said, hey, man, want to let you know I'm doing good. Here's where I'm at. This is what's happened. I want you to know that you were always just real. I always respected the fact that you were honest, you were sincere, all these things. And even just the way he was talking, I was like, man, is this the same kid? Because, of course, I had him in sixth grade, and now he's, 25 years old or some darn thing. And it's just like, and I was so elated. I was like, man, if you come back to town, we got to go to lunch. We got to hang out. Like, I got to hear your story, know what's going on with you. Like, that hit me so hard. I was like, God, I didn't think I didn't think you'd even remember me after you left. Man, and for me, that gives you that inspiration to go another 20 years. Like, sign me up. I'm in.
Yeah.
Because those are those powerful moments that, man, when you get them, treasure those babies because that's it. That's it.
All right, brother, man. Listen, dude, I can't even tell you how much I enjoyed our time together, and just talking to you, and just connecting with somebody who is just equally passionate about making a difference in the lives of kids. I can't thank you enough for all that you give to your kids at your school, and the teachers in your school family. Man, I just love it, and I am so appreciative of you.
Hey, thanks. I gotta say the same thing to you. No, there are people out there and in social media and things like that, that you follow, you hear things from, you take ideas from, but man, your voice in education right now is so powerful. And I want to thank you because you're inspiring the rest of us that when we do have those days, sometimes I'm not good on typing Hal Bowman
Right.
and I can watch it. I'm like, yeah, here it is. This is what I'm doing, man. Like, this is why,
Yeah.
even the Facebook post with the quotes you've been putting on every day of the year. I mean, man, keep doing what you're doing because you're inspiring thousands of us across the country to keep on pushing through and doing this work. So, man, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate everything you do and the passion that you share every day online and your presence because you're there in my life every single day. So I thank you for that.
Man, I appreciate it. All right, man.
Absolutely.
Dude, thank you so much. And I guarantee you both we'll do. I was thinking about, as we're talking here earlier, I was thinking, man, me, you, and John ought to get together on like a three-way type of podcast and be a blast.
Yeah, we got to get you up to Montana, man.
That's what I'm thinking. Here's the other thing, dude. I really want to come up there, man. Like I have a student of mine who lives up there. I can visit that kid, and man, I just want to. We'll figure it out here somehow in the next year. We'll do a big Teach Like a Rockstar event, and for all those teachers out there, it'll be amazing.
Heck yeah, well, that'd be sweet. We'd love to have you.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. All
You bet. Have a good night.
right, take care, brother.